we go. We're live. Welcome into the Slate Wednesday edition. Jeff Ulrich, got Reed Fowler joining us. We may even have a mystery guest joining us. Usually this is a three-man booth, but Emerson Latzia off washing his dogs today. So anyways, who cares? Reed and I are here. We're going to drive you through the next 30, 40 minutes or so. We're going to dive into conference championships. We're going to dive into some lines, discuss a little bit of that, any news going on, maybe get into a little DFS. And of course, it's Reed and I. We're going to talk golf. Got the Farmers Insurance starting on Wednesday. So how you doing, man? How are you? How's your Wednesday been going so far?
Good. I actually found out today that we're going to have like 4,000 feet of snow on Friday or Saturday. So that's exciting. Because we're on the eastern side of the United States.
That's right. And all the western side of the United States has good weather all the time, as I explained on the Sweat this morning. So, yes.
If you're watching right now, the Farmers Insurance Open, which is in San Diego, you are quite jealous of their weather if you're not there or if you're anywhere near where Jeff and I are. But no, Wednesday's going well. This obviously feels weird because it's a Wednesday start for the tournament. Because usually, I don't know about you, Jeff, our schedules for the most part, right, kind of go off of sporting events. Like that's how I break up the week. And usually I feel like this on Thursday, thinking to myself for my one and dones, my bets. I have, yesterday I have 2 days to really, screw them up and overthink our bets and one and done picks and whatnot. So I think everybody is a little bit off. I was on a radio show this morning and the host was also saying he thought this today was Thursday. So I think everyone, what is it? Mercury's in retrograde. Is that what the cool kids say these days?
Yeah. I still haven't looked up what that means, but I know people say that like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. I know it's something like you turn into a werewolf or something. I'm not exactly sure what happens with that, but it is a weird week. And I agree with everything you said. Like, it's Wednesday and you just panic. And like, I was panicking getting in extra golf bets last night, because usually I leave myself a little bit of time on Wednesday to do it.
Right.
And then I was tweeting things at midnight and like nobody cares about my tweets. But anyways, the golf event's going on now. It looks like easy conditions there at the Farmers. Like I said, we'll get to that later. Maybe when Latzia shows up, if he ever shows up, we'll talk about that. But we'll definitely do some golf talk at the end of the show. Let's hit up these lines. I know I talked about these lines for the conference championship game on Monday with Glash and Matt. Again, we got a version of the slate on Mondays going on as well, but not much has changed so far. I think a little bit has changed. I think the totals have changed in these games, but we still got the Bengals at +7, -110 both sides. And we still got the 49ers at +3.5. Don't think that one's changed. It's still -15 49ers as well. Has that one changed?
I don't think so. Like the juice might. I don't think it has. Let me just.
Yeah, I don't think the line. I'm pretty sure that's what it opened at. Anyways, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I'm just again having a brain cramp as I have been all day. But so lines really haven't moved much. But at this point in the week, I mean, what is your? Let's instead of talking about just looking like lines and then total, what is your favorite way to attack both games? Like for Cincinnati Chiefs, if you're looking at this from a betting perspective, like what is the way you think people should be attacking this? Like best bet overall. Is it the line? Is it like teasing something up? Is it the total? Yeah. Is it like neither? Is it just like should just be doing props for this game? What's your take on Bengals Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to tease, and I think the proper way to do that is teasing San Francisco up. You go through the key numbers, and then teasing Kansas City down at -120. But you're not really getting a lot of leverage. You're not really getting a lot of, you're buying points, but you still got to lay some decent juice. While if you just parlay the money lines, which is probably what I would want to do, is parlay the Chiefs and the Rams, you'll see that you get plus money just for them to win, right? Because when you talk about the spreads, and I'm sure you mentioned this yesterday, Jeff, is that they're so finite right now because this is essentially the most data that all these sports books will have, right? Throughout the season. They've probably already had their algorithms set and their numbers pretty fine, like pretty close to perfect, week 8, week 9. Mm-hmm. And so the leverage, the margins are so razor thin when you're talking about spreads. And on top of that too, both of these teams have met earlier in the season, right? We know that the NFC West matchup with the 49ers and Rams, they've met twice. The Chiefs and the Bengals met recently. So when you glean all that stuff together, you can kind of go down a rabbit hole of how you think this game is going to go. And specifically, if you look at this over in that first game at 54 and a half, 97% of the cash is on the over. And I think you mentioned this, but I don't necessarily think that's as much of a lock as the numbers are indicating right now. Like if you take out Cincinnati's game against the Raiders, where that touchdown was questionable, let's just split that in half, right? For instance, and give them 3.5 points instead of the whole 7.
Yeah.
They've only scored around 21 points in their last couple of games in the playoffs.
Yep.
And before that, right, they haven't really been putting up a ton of points unless it was against that Chiefs game. The Chiefs, on the other hand, have been putting up a ton of points since week 14. So I have faith in the Chiefs doing it. I'm just not sure Cincinnati, because if it's going to be T. Higgins, which I think you and I agree on, that is going to be the receiver that you probably want to target for props.
Yep.
And I don't really see the whole Jamar Chase getting 200 plus receiving yards and 3 touchdowns again. That's just not going to happen. Right.
I know I love Jamar Chase, but it is it's asking a lot for him to go off again in this game. It feels like, I mean, defense that's already seen him. I know they got burned, and I know like the Chiefs, obviously they've been kind of eating up some weaker competition, but I don't know. It does feel like a spot where they should be able to just, focus on Chase and let kind of the other guys beat them. And like, to your point, I mean, Kansas City, because they've been playing so well too, like they've had some games like against Denver, Pittsburgh in week 16, they've scored points, but the game hasn't gone over. So like, we're talking 30 points with Denver, like 46 with Pittsburgh, even both games against Denver, like well under 54 points. So yeah, I mean, if Cincinnati gets off to a slow start here, you could just see Kansas City cruise a bit. And I think especially now at 54 and a half, like I agree, there is so much money too on this over, right, Reed? Like, yeah, I mean, it just feels like a square bet. Like it just feels super square to be on the over right now. Maybe earlier in the week, I think this opened at 52 and a half or 53. Yeah. Sure. I kind of get that. If you got on it right away, I think that's a fine number because you weren't getting it any lower than that. But there's a lot of ways this game can still go under. Like, I think people are overlooking that. So total, I think I might even bet the under, like by the end of the week. Honestly, that's definitely something I'm looking at. As far as like lines go, yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. I know I talked about this with Matt. My first inclination was maybe the Bengals, like the line starts to move and the Bengals get up to like 8.5, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that there's too many people liking Joe Burrow and also just, like 7 is a big number. Like when you get over 7, I mean, that's kind of like the key, right? So I don't even know. And I don't know if we'll even get under 7. Yeah. I feel like this line is taking some pretty solid action on both sides. I still think that the last time I looked at the Chiefs had more action, but that could even more even out. Like a few more sharps get on the Bengals and the money will even out. So that's kind of, I mean, this one, I don't think you're going to see a ton more movement personally.
The spreads right now in terms of cash and tickets I'm seeing is 83 is on Cincinnati, the cash for the getting the points.
Yep.
And then 87. So essentially flipped for money line on Kansas City.
Right. Okay.
So when you think about that, right, it's now you're getting into, if you see late movement, this is what we saw last week as well, right? I think it was Tampa Bay where we saw late movement. It's because a lot of money comes in late. I just don't see any books giving away 6.5 to the Chiefs because that will be bought up so quickly. Yeah, maybe they do to equalize it out, but that's going to be bought up so quickly at 6.5. So if you want 6.5 and you maybe think that that's going to be the case where late money comes in, I would be watching this like you're watching your BTC and your ETH right now just go down and down and down, and you're waiting for that dip to finally buy the Kansas City Chiefs at -6.5. I don't really think it happens because
I don't think it does either.
Yeah, I think that's I mean 6.5 for the Chiefs. I would buy that instantaneously.
I think if there's any movement, like late movement in this game, because similar to that Tampa one, it'll be like somebody just piling on the Chiefs because I kind of like the Chiefs. Like if you're saying like what side are you going to be on, I'll take the Chiefs. Even at 7, I would be on the Chiefs. I love Joe Burrow. We talked about this yesterday. Like the Bengals are okay, but like realistically, what did they do? Like they're not going to get 3 interceptions from Ryan Tannehill last week. Like they got the worst game possible from the Tennessee offense, and they barely won that game. I just don't think they do anything like that good. Obviously, they have Jamar Chase, and that's fantastic. But I don't know. I don't think that the Chiefs offense is going to let them go crazy again. I kind of see a lower scoring game here, if I'm being honest. I think the Chiefs get up a couple scores, and it might just get a little bit boring. Right. It's sometimes what happens like after big letdowns. So,
and what do you do, right? What do you do if you're the Bengals? You look at how teams kept it close or beat the Chiefs earlier in the season, and you essentially try to do that. Like, I don't think the same plan of the Chiefs going up early like last week is going to pan out this week, as we see Cam Davis double bogeying the easiest hole, par 5 easiest hole. So now he's 2 off the lead. So that's probably given away 3 strokes at the field. I digress. But that's you're not able to get enough points up on the board. And I think that's where a lot of people are going, is saying, well, the Bengals are just going to be in scoring mode, right? Even if they get up by 7, they get up by 10, they're going to be in scoring mode. The thing I worry about again is that, the offensive line, obviously, we know that they are bad. And I know, they are bad. And you're seeing that Joe Burrow is running for his. This is the same thing that happened last year. You're like, this only a matter of time until this guy gets hurt. I'm not saying he's going to get hurt in this game at all.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter who you have out there as receiver if you can't block anybody. And the Chiefs they don't have the same level of pass rush or defensive line as Tennessee did. But we know Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator, blitzes top 10 blitz rate in the NFL right now in that defense. So if you're able to do that, like, I just don't see it happening where you're going to be able to put up a lot of points. And Zach Taylor, like, do you trust him?
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, Zach Taylor ran a pretty conservative offense at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And like, I could see the Bengals coming out, and even if they get behind, like, just being like, okay, we're going to try and keep Joe Burrow upright. We're going to run the ball a little bit. And they already said, like, we're going to try and limit Mahomes to field goals. It sounds like a team that's getting ready to play, like try and just make it a close game and just have a shot at the end. So again, like, I'm pretty bullish on the under here. Let's just dip over to the conference special tab for this game.
Yeah.
If you're on the DraftKings Sportsbook, there's a conference special tab. There's some sweet props up there. Just for this game specifically, and then we'll go to the other game. You can bring up anything you want, but I was just going to ask you, like, for most passing yards and most, you can go receiving yards or rush yards, is there anyone, like, from these 2 games that you really like targeting? Like, for most passing yards, we got Patrick Mahomes at plus 175, Burrow at plus 175. Receiving yards, obviously, you can go to Hill at plus 600. T. Higgins, we both kind of like at plus 850. Yep. Is there anyone, like, in any of these props, and then the rushing props too, that you kind of just are interested in, or is, before we get to the other game?
Yeah. I'm not extremely bullish on the NFC game. I think both these guys go under their passing yard props. Just because how these teams played each other in the regular season. We kind of see that, right? A little bit is that Jimmy Garoppolo, well, look, San Francisco has run the ball at 60% against, their plays against the Rams this season. So if only 40% of those plays are passes, and passes probably going to Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. I think George Kittle is going to have a solid game.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see that. And again, I think Sean McVay, in the back of his head, even though Stafford is a much better quarterback than Jared Goff, he still worries about those interceptions. You kind of saw it, right, with Stafford, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, which I thought was interesting, is that when Stafford gets confident, that's when he throws the interceptions. Right. When he gets overconfident. And, you see that from him from time to time. So I do think that they're going to mitigate a lot of that, even though San Francisco has a solid run defense. I think it's going to be one of those closer games, right? Those 23 to 20, 23 to 17 type of games. And so you got to go, in my mind, to the AFC. And if that's the case, right, I think it's tough. So for me, in this one specifically, I'm trying to stay away because I don't necessarily think Joe Burrow is going to have this amazing game like he did last time. And I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to have this explosion of a type of game because Cincinnati is going to try to keep that ADOT down. And that's what teams have done to try and mitigate, right?
So are you more just like laying off or like, take
I'm
a
laying
shot?
off the most passing yards.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I'm going to a quarterback prop, and I think I mentioned this on the sweat, is Patrick Mahomes over rushing 29 and a half
Okay.
yards. Because if you take a look at what he's done in the playoffs, he's averaging 36 yards in his 8 playoff games on the ground, and he runs. We've seen quarterbacks do this time and time again, right? Not just him, but we saw it from Josh Allen. We see it from guys like Russell Wilson in the playoffs, or just any quarterback for that matter. Stafford, Garoppolo, they're probably going to run more, because that way you mitigate mistakes, right? If your second, third option isn't exactly there, you're probably going to run it. And Patrick Mahomes has done that.
Mahomes is so smart too. And what people don't realize is when you have a guy dropping back in the shotgun and spreading it out like every play with guys like Tyreek Hill, Pringle even, and then guys like who just are coverage impossibilities and Travis Kelce, it just opens up the field. Like you can't spy Patrick Mahomes and cover all that speed. And Mahomes is smart. Like he knows, he's like, okay, I'm pretty athletic. Like I'm not Lamar Jackson, but I can run. Like I'm a big dude. Good luck. Like here's 10 yards, here's another 10 yards. You cover that. And then all of a sudden they try to overcompensate and Travis Kelce's wide open down the middle. It's just a nightmare. Right. So Josh Allen is kind of in that same boat too. Like although he's not as good a passer as Mahomes, he doesn't make them pay as much in the pass game, but he's getting there. I like that bet. 29 and a half, still too low. Like they just haven't adjusted. I agree kind of with the passing to props. I don't think there's much value there. I think if you're looking anywhere, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is kind of interesting at plus 700 to have the most rushing yards. He looked really good rushing the ball. Again, I think there's lots of scenarios where Kansas City gets up early. The Bengals rush defense over the last 4 or 5 games, it's been bad. They just, like we're giving up yards to Donta Foreman. It's just Derrick Henry was not quite back to his normal self, couldn't quite break off the big plays. But I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be interesting there. Most receiving yards is really interesting because this is where we see the big volatility. Like we could have another Gabriel Davis, right? You brought up George Kittle. I think that's my favorite bet here. If Deebo Samuel is even just like a little banged up, I think George Kittle will pop up and kind of be that guy. He's played the Rams really well. He's got over 100 yards in like 3 of his last 6 games against them or something like that. He usually gets up for these Rams games. I really like George Kittle there. I'd like it even more if like Deebo was super limited, but even if he's just a little, it could really boost him. So I think you're getting fair enough odds to take a shot with Kittle. I definitely like him more than Beckham. And like, I don't know, anyone bigger than that. Like I threw Joe Mixon in the receiving props at plus 4,000.
You know, the thing about Joe Mixon though, is they never run him in the, like last week. I think he was the lowest of any running back in terms of routes run per drop back.
That I know Mixon's catches, they're all screens and then he takes them to like for 50 yards, but you're really relying on him like breaking a couple long screens. Maybe this is the game where like they're just behind the whole second half and they run them, but you're right, like it's a bit of a thin one. Like there's really no, I mean, I guess you could give like Mecole Hardman a shot, but I think Kittle
but like deep shots. I mean, Byron Pringle is getting a lot of work as that third receiver in Kansas City. Right. And we saw kind of what Gabe Davis did. I'm not saying those are one and the same, but Byron Pringle and then Van Jefferson. Like I said, I know I'm contradicting myself here, but we only have 2 games, 4 teams. So you have to take some shots. You have to kind of buck your narrative of, hey, this is how I think the game's going to be. And it's kind of how you hedge it. Van Jefferson could easily be, his man, right? Could easily be that guy who gets 100+ yards on 4 catches, right? Like it's just that's something that I wouldn't be so like surprised happening, right? That cup doesn't do it, that OBJ doesn't get his work, but Van Jefferson is a guy. So if there's any long shots, it's probably one of those guys.
And again, like we only have 2 games. So
right.
Like let's say Byron Pringle goes for 120 yards. I mean, we could easily see the high receiver in San Francisco Rams be like 70 yards. I mean, we could get a 2017 game with 2 teams that like to run the ball easily. And conversely, if Van Jefferson catches like 4 passes for 110 yards, I mean, again, maybe the Chiefs get up, they get a special team score. So keep that in mind. Like I agree, like these guys like Jefferson and Pringle, they're probably more live than we're giving them credit. And I kind of feel a plus 3,000, like that's big enough to take a couple shots there. So I think if you're approaching it, you either just like pick one guy like a T Higgins or a Kittle, or you like mix and match a couple guys and you kind of bet it like you're building a golf cart with like Pringle and Jefferson. And I think those are the two guys I would target too. I don't know if there's anyone else. I'm not going to take Josh Gordon to come off the practice squad and lead the slate.
To your point though, Jeff, you talk about Mixon where he gets those screens. The top two guys in the NFL in yards after catch, right, is Cup and then your boy, Deebo Samuel.
It's still most likely that one of those guys just
right. And that's the one thing that the Chiefs, I think, were the number one team to give up the most yards after catch.
Yeah.
So maybe we're all missing the boat on like Tyler Boyd or something. I don't know. But the Rams were number 3. And I'm sure a lot of that came from his 2 games against the Rams.
Yep.
Like Deebo Samuel is someone who, after first contact, is so good at gaining 10, 15, 20 yards after he gets hit. Because when you're a defense and you're running through all the traffic and you see that one guy is pretty close tackling him, I'm not saying this is the case, but mentally, do you think, okay, well, I might not have to run as close and go to the pile?
It's like I always say, Cordero Patterson died so Deebo Samuel could live.
Right.
I mean,
whatever happened to him?
Both guys just after the catch monsters. Deebo, even as a rookie, like led the league in like yards after the catch average, I think. So yeah, I mean, even just taking a shot with Deebo at plus 1,000, that almost seems big too. But anyways, that's an interesting prop. Let's just talk about the San Francisco LA Rams line for a bit, and then maybe we'll do a little bit of DFS and save the rest for golf. What's your take here? You got San Francisco at LA. I kind of got a harder take on this game. I like one side or the other, but I'll let you go first. If there's any way you're looking at it to bet, again, haven't had any movement on this one. I don't know if we will, but maybe we'll get some late injury news. But what's your take on this one?
So I have a Rams future that 15-1.
Looking pretty good now.
Pretty good, yeah, really good. But I mean, barring and this is a caveat that I said early in the season, the preseason, is that they have to stay healthy, right? And they didn't dodge a bullet. They were smart enough to go out and really entice OBJ when Robert Woods goes down. You got OBJ, and that really is obviously helping out, and it's paying dividends right now. So they've stayed relatively healthy. They're a little bit banged up. I know that in the secondary and the defensive side, but again, their key players are still fairly healthy. On this one, where I'm going, Jeff, is I'm actually laying the points with I'm taking the points with the 49ers at 3.5 because it's a little bit of a hedge, right? And so why I mentioned my Rams outright early is because depending on where you are, what your betting profile is, or your outrights, like you're full on the totality of your betting book. If you have outrights on the Rams, this is when you start hedging, right? Like you start hedging on. Right, like the Rams,
especially with them being the favorites here.
Right, like the 49ers. You would have hedged on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if you had Rams outrights, right? And then you slowly make your way to hedging to where you're still plus money if the Rams win, but you're not completely out of it if they lose. Michael Thompson goes to 8 under. Man, that bearded bad, you know what? But
I'm actually growing a beard. Like since his last win, Michael Thompson hasn't shaved. I noticed that today. I'm like, wow, this is Michael Thompson now.
It's great. It's fantastic. So I'm taking the points with the 49ers, and this is why too. Obviously, they've played this team and they know them very well. They played them extremely well in the regular season, right? And Shanahan knows what to do, which is to not blitz Matt Stafford. I don't know why teams continuously do this and why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to blitz him, especially towards the end of that game. Just look at what he does against the blitz.
Yeah.
When you leave these receivers on islands, which is what I said last week, that's what's going to happen. And San Francisco doesn't do that. They're able to get pressure with 4. So I do like San Francisco getting the points. You attack them across the middle, like you mentioned with George Kittle. And so I still think the Rams win, but I'm taking the points here.
Yeah. No, I love the 49ers at the point. That's kind of my take this week as well. I don't even mind them on the money line, but I think the spread's a better bet. It's just these teams, I think they're close, and I think the spread should be at like +2 or +2.5 or something. I mean, I think +3 is too big. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, like the Rams having home field, okay, like whatever. I mean, it's LA. It's a big fancy new stadium. I don't think it's going to be a big deal.
Well, the other thing, sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So Stafford mentioned the last time these two teams played that like one of it was the crowd noise and the fans were, I think 75% of them were San Francisco fans.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point. I mean, I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised to hear. That's why I said, like, it's almost like I was going to say, this is like, it feels like a neutral field game. It really does. Yeah. The football fans in LA, look, I'm sure LA is a great place and everyone's nice there, but like they're not, it's not like you're going into like the dog pound or something, or like Lambeau, it's just a bunch of people showing up at a fancy stadium, and some of them, and a lot of them are going to be 49ers fans, and 49ers fans are a pretty rabid fan base, and they're going to travel down. So again, I don't think this line should be 3.5. At the very least, it doesn't matter who wins. I think this is I think the Rams are fine. They're a good team, but yeah, I think that you brought up some great points too. And don't the Rams have someone banged up on the O-line?
Yeah, Whitworth,
right. Yeah. Okay. So again, like the 49ers can get pressure without blitzing. And to your point, their secondary isn't good enough to blitz anyways. So I don't think they're going to do that in this game. And I think that's a good thing. And I also will just, I owe 6-0. Kyle Shanahan is 6-0 against Sean McVay over the last 3 years. He's beat him with Nick Mullins at quarterback, friends. You just saw the Rams give up a 20-plus point lead in the last game. And Tampa, they ended up winning by 3. And now you got a 3.5-point spread against a team that, like the 49ers, that are good. I don't know how you don't take San Francisco here. I think you might even see the spread get down to 3 by game time. But anyways, I like San Francisco side. I won't be shocked whoever wins. I mean, I don't think the Rams are like garbage. I just think they're inconsistent, and I think that the 49ers execute better, but both teams talented. That's going to be a fun game. I'm actually more excited for that game, to be honest, than the other game, just because I don't think the Chiefs Bengals is going to be that exciting. That's just
I don't think so either. I think the Chiefs are going to throttle them.
I think that's
going to, I know there's a lot of love for Cincy, and I get it. And I think a lot of it too, if you're in our circle, right, the Cincinnati Bengals, it just fits, right? Young team, if you have Burrow, trading card, signed cards from rookie Burrow cards, rookie Chase cards, you're all in because your mind space has to be all in on this team.
That's the thing. Like I won't be disappointed because of that reason. For me, like if Cincinnati wins and we get a great game and Burrow is like the hero, great. But I'm kind of just expecting Kansas City to just win. And it's going to be a bit deflating, but at least I won't be disappointed because that's what I'm expecting. So,
yeah. And let's not remember, before Jamar Chase went on his amazing game, Kansas City was dominating Cincinnati. And for whatever reason, like in the second half, they changed the play calling. They got some questionable calls from the refs, and things changed. And Cincinnati took full advantage of that. I'm not saying anything away from them, but if those things don't happen, those outlier things don't happen, then it's the Chiefs in a runaway win. Yeah. Right.
I think we're definitely on the same page as that in that game anyways. So it's going to be interesting to see what, certainly Cincy, if they make it interesting again, man, like, could you imagine if Joe Burrow goes to the Super Bowl this year, a year after coming back from people like legit were like, he's never going to be the same. This dude had his knee wrecked. Like, it wasn't just like, ACL. It was like a bad knee injury. So Joe Burrow potentially about to rocket into like, I don't want to say Tom Brady stardom, but like he's going to be on a pretty big rocket course here. If he makes the Super Bowl in his second year here.
If he wins, then
wow.
You have to start considering him as one of the top 5 quarterbacks.
I mean, I made this case, I think it was on the Sims last year. I said, if there's anybody in the game right now who's got that same kind of aura about him, and maybe just like going back to college even, that has that same kind of Brady just mentality that things are just going to work out. And maybe it's a little bit of luck, and maybe it's just a little bit of like, that mentality, is Joe Burrow. Because look what he did in college, man. Like his last year, winning everything, like down in big games, making these crazy comebacks and stuff. And like, it just worked out. And I just feel like he's got that same kind of swagger now in the NFL. And I think you're seeing a guy is potentially like going to be, maybe it won't just be him. Like I'm sure Justin Herbert and some other guys will have their moments too, but I think Burrow is about to rock into superstar, but still got to get by Mahomes. So yeah. You want to talk DFS for like 5 minutes and then we'll go to the golf? Emerson has tweeted at us or something. So apparently he's trying to work his computer. It could probably take another 10 minutes. Maybe he can join us.
Forget him.
We'll carry him for the last 5 minutes as per usual. But let's head over to the 2-game slate, because this is an interesting week for DFS. I mean, obviously we got a massive contest on DraftKings. If you haven't headed over there, it's a 3.5 milli maker. It's a big $20 entry. We've got all the games on one day today. This weekend on Sunday. Obviously only 2 games to choose from, but man, like we got some deep receiving cores here. You usually on a 2-game slate,
right?
Like this feels like this should be like a 6-game slate with all the receivers we have to choose from, like there are a lot of guys in play here. Who is your main stack you're going to? Do you have like a main, if you're attacking a big field, the milli maker, what is your main stack you're going to? Like, give me a couple names, give me a quarterback, and then who are you going to pair them with?
Yeah, like everyone dislikes Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Because what he's done. Go to
Jimmy G. I love it, man.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you need in this. And the reason being is I want to stack him with Debo. Like, if I want to get Debo in my lineup every which way, and if I have to stack someone, it's a triple stack of Debo, Kittle, and Garoppolo, because you have to look at this 2-game slate as right, like fully going in on like one narrative that most people aren't going to go in on that has a better than slim chance of happening, right? Like, so if I'm putting 25% of the San Francisco 49ers having a pretty good offensive, showing like we talked about, then that's the case, right? Is that you want to really start to target that game specifically. Even like I don't even mind going someone like a Stafford and Van Jefferson type of stack, but I really want to go on that San Francisco side, because the whole sentiment on Jimmy G is he's not supposed to be doing what he's doing, and he doesn't give you a lot of yards, he doesn't give you a lot of pizzazz. But when you look at what he's done in these matchups, it's been relatively like good, right? And that's the thing that you want to look at, right? Is that what's going to be the reason why they win? And it's, yes, can they run the ball? Yes, but they don't just run the ball with Eli Mitchell. They run the ball with Deebo Samuel. They get him in the spots where they do these bubble screens. So that's one of my main stacks, is going with Jimmy G and Deebo Samuel, and then trying to fill in the rest of my roster with the other side, because I think most people are going to go to that side, right? Since it's of course Cincinnati and Kansas City, but I'd much rather take the cheapest option in terms of ownership.
I mean, there's so much recency bias in play too with the Chiefs, right? And even the Bengals. I mean, we have last week seeing Patrick Mahomes go crazy, play out of his mind, beat up on like a really good Bills defense. But we have like 4 or 5 weeks ago, the Bengals and the Chiefs played to like a 60-point plus game.
Right.
So it's gonna people just aren't going to be able to make themselves stack the Rams in San Francisco. I love it, man. I definitely think you could see the Rams in San Francisco at least produce like a 27-24 game. We got tons of offensive studs here. We got Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, potentially like the best 2 wide receivers in fantasy this year. And you mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I mean, okay, he didn't play well last week. We get it, but he was banged up. It's a really tough spot in Lambeau Field. It's not like Aaron Rodgers played that great either. You go back, he completed 71% of his passes against the Rams in week 18.
Yeah.
He went for over 300 yards 2 games in a row. Like, yeah. I mean, he really hasn't played that bad of late. He's actually played pretty clean football. So the thing I worry about Jimmy Garoppolo is, does he have enough upside to win this slate? But realistically, if you're playing him, you're playing for a slow game in Kansas City, Cincinnati anyways. So you're probably you're already fading big games from those quarterbacks. If you get 20 points from Garoppolo, that's probably going to be enough, because again, you're saving at other positions. It's letting you stack him with Debo and Kupp. So yeah, I think there's actually a lot of appeal here to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. You're obviously saying, okay, I'm playing the San Francisco, LA Rams side of the ball. Who am I looking for in Kansas City? Another thing I really think you can do, I think you can play both Chiefs running backs. I think there's a situation where maybe you get like all the touchdowns there from McKinnon and Edwards-Helaire, but again, McKinnon ran 71% of the routes last week, a route on 71% of the snaps last week. So he is a receiver. Like he could lead the team in receptions. That is a possibility. Edwards-Helaire has looked good as a runner. So Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can attack the slate. And if you go heavy San Francisco, LA, you can come back with some funky things from that Bengals game.
Yeah, I mean, look at Jerry McKinnon's receiving. I mean, he looks like it made 754 against Buffalo and 6 for 81 against Pitt. Right? He looks like it's a receiver line. So I don't mind that at all. And so what you're saying is your team stacking, right? And look, this is where you have to deploy all of your, your kind of your wonky strategies of double tight end, team stacking, game stacking.
Oh yeah, I like that. Like get Kelsey and Kittle in there or something. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
because that's what's going to happen is, and especially in these games too. What I always like to do is, and this is something like I'm taking this from Showdown as well, is or maybe just not Showdown, but when you have a high profile game or players, if we aggregate this as one total game, right? All 4 of these players or 4 of these teams, what you always want to do is look at the tight ends in these high-powered in these like high-powered offenses. I did it a lot with Dallas and Dalton Schultz, right? Because you have marquee players at the running back position and the receivers. Dalton Schultz at the tight end always kind of gets mispriced and underowned because everyone's going to go there. I know we have we have expensive tight ends here with Travis Kelce and George Kittle, but let's not forget these 2 guys. And I'm not saying CJ Uzomah is going to be, a slate breaker. I don't necessarily think that I would choose him, but Tyler Higbee is someone, like I mentioned, right? Like we see him get worked in quite a bit. 7 targets, 4, 8, 9, 6. Yep. Like he is a guy that gets worked in quite a bit. So if you start to stack your tight ends, as opposed to, I want to get Tyreek Hill in, I want to get Jamar Chase in. What if you go like Travis Kelce or like you go George Kittle, Tyler Higbee, right? And then you bring it back with like a Tyreek Hill and you leave Travis Kelce. Like that's the stuff that you have to start to think about in this 4-game slate.
Yeah. And I mean, I was going to ask you like quickly here, and we'll get to the golf. If there's anyone just kind of like way off the board that you'd even consider here, like I'm talking like Demarcus Robinson, Trent Sherfield. Is there anyone out there like that we should be considering? I mean, I feel like these rosters are deep enough. Kendall Blanton is,
yeah.
That's interesting. This guy didn't get a pass for 4 weeks, and then he shows up with 2 targets and a touchdown last week. I mean, I don't know.
Too bad we can't roster like offensive line, just as a placeholder. Like you could definitely. I mean, look, Kansas City always does wonky things at the goal line. We see this all the time with them. They do. Right? They're underhand passes.
Yeah.
Or, they're fullbacks. And so maybe is he considered a running back? Yeah. No, like that's Blake Bell. I was going to see who's their Kansas City's fullback. I don't even think he's listed.
Actually, who's
Sherman, the Shermanator.
Sherman. Oh yeah. Shermanator. Yeah. Right.
He's not listed here. You probably only get him on Showdown, but yeah, that's someone that I would want to try and roster as a Shermanator. Because Kansas City is going, I promise you, they're going to do something wonky on the goal line. We see it all the time from them. Andy Reid wants to flex his goal line play calling muscle and get weird, even though you have like arguably the best 3 or 4 options in the NFL when it comes to goal line: Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But watch out for that, because that's the one place that you might see something wonky.
Blake Bell could be this week's Kendall Blanton. Yeah, I could see that. Something like that.
Like everybody's on everybody else in Kansas City except for number 81.
Maybe
right? Last time Cincinnati, like he got 6 years. Right? Like he didn't get a touchdown, but he got you 3 for 35.
Yeah. Anyways, this is probably going to see someone like that factor into this slate. But yeah, I mean, we do have pretty deep rosters. So anyways, it's going to be a fun 2-gamer. We'll have some stuff out on DK Nation. I'll have some tournament targets out, tournament article out on DK Nation on Friday. So give me a follow at the Fantasy Grind. Go to DK Nation, read all Reed stuff as well. You get your trends article out there.
Yeah, but the trends now is great, right? As it's like it sucks at the beginning because all teams are playing, and then we get like the buys, and so you don't have to research all of these teams, and then you don't when it gets towards the end of the season, which sucks. But then once we get to the playoffs, right, those teams obviously condense, and so yes, the trends article will be out, but it's only going to be 2 games, 4 teams,
right?
So
yeah, so
it's going to be shorter. It's going to be a short read.
Okay. 5 or 10 minutes left. Let's go to golf. What's going on here? Give us an update. Who's doing what?
I hope you guys know how hard it was for me to contain my disdain when I saw Cam Davis get a double bogey on the easiest hole on the easier course.
Oh man.
And he was greenside, Jeff.
Oh, it was the second last hole. Oh man.
Second to last hole. He was greenside in 2, and he flies one. I think he went out of bounds. I think he flew it out of bounds from the green side. Yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, he flew out of bounds and ended up getting a double bogey on the easiest hole, probably the easiest hole of the tournament. You got a double bogey, so he probably lost 3 strokes right there. But right now, look, this is one where you see John Rahm here at plus 300, Jeff.
Yeah,
a lot of the heavy hitters, like John Rahm's at 5 under right now. Berger's at 5 under. Brooks is at 2 under. I think DJ, he's not finished yet.
He fell back to 3.
I think he fell back to 3. Yeah.
Rahm's on the South course too. That's scary.
Yeah. So Rahm, JT, and DJ are all playing together. They're in the same group.
Yeah.
JT's at 4 under. Xander's at 4 under. So what I'm saying is this is some heavy artillery at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, when these guys are at the top, and that's why the Cam Davis, you want them to be as close as possible for as long as possible, holding on for dear life, like Ethan Hunt, in Mission Impossible 17 on that plane. You just want him to hold on, and that's what we're getting, right? But at the same time, you see guys like Mav McNeely. He's at 4 under, a guy that you liked quite a bit. Well, Zalatoris is at 3 under. So we got a good tournament on our hands. Yeah. What I love about the PGA Tour is that they're ending on Saturday. It's great. And on Saturday, so we don't have to worry about bifurcating our time between football and golf.
It is good. It's great for this week, especially because we have basically 2 days to just veg on the couch as well. I mean, this event is, it's seeing the guys. What's important to note today is who did well on the South course. Yeah. Obviously you want your guy to do good on the North course. And if they put up a 5 under, like a 4 under, that's good. They're in fine position. But the guys who are going 4 or 5 under on the South course, if they blitz the North course tomorrow, they're going to be in great position. So, you mentioned JT, he's at 4, Rahm at 5, although Rahm is maybe in a little bit of trouble right now, but he's still in good position. A couple other dudes like Zalatoris is fine. He's at 3. If he goes low tomorrow, he'll be fine. Wyndham Clark's there. Joaquin Niemann shot 3 under too. So, some names to consider. We'll have to see where Rahm gets in, but Scotty Scheffler is actually having a pretty good round too. So like you said, tons of big names here. I think the guys, you don't want to get too crazy on, are the guys who shot 5 under on the North course today and are kind of they're kind of mediocre players because they're at okay spots, but they got to back it up tomorrow on the tough course. So I'm not going to go through all the names, but
Billy
interesting.
Horschel.
It looks like easier conditions. That's for sure. It definitely could. I think that probably helps some of these worse players. I think tougher conditions probably would have helped a guy like Rahm or even Dustin long term. But bit more of a putting contest this week, maybe. But
Billy Horschel is 8 under through 14, which is he's on the North course.
He's only on 14 too.
That's wild.
That's what I'm saying though. You can shoot 62 on the North course, so. That's why I would hesitate jumping on to anyone who went low on the North course today, because if Rahm shoots 5 under today and then blitzes it for a 63 tomorrow, you may think you're getting a good number, plus 5,000 or plus 5,000 or plus 4,000, but the same player you're on could be plus 8,000 after the second round. So do we have anyone blow up today? It seems like the chalk didn't really blow up at all today. Oh, Brad Snedeker's +1.
Hideki, he wasn't chalk. Matt Wolf shot 1 under. Finau's at 2 under. Bryson's at 2 under. Brooks is at 2 under. One guy I wanted to mention though is Ricky. Ricky shot 6 under today. He's on the North course, but he shot 6 under. He's at plus 4,000. Like you mentioned, you probably don't want to.
We know what's coming up for Ricky too.
Oh yeah,
the Phoenix Open is coming up for Ricky.
He always loves this time of the year. That's why I didn't necessarily like him last week, is because I always think he uses last week as DJ drains a long putt for birdie. He's at 4 under. Ricky always gets, I mean, Farmers is one of his sponsors. I don't know if he had a ton of sponsors obligations this week. I mean, clearly it didn't worry him, but this is a time where Ricky kind of shows up.
Yeah, it is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Again, I wouldn't jump on him here because I already played the North Course and we got Ron behind him and DJ and stuff. But yeah, don't forget about Ricky Fowler, Phoenix Open. All right, we got to wrap. That's it. That's over. I guess we get no Lazio this week. So hopefully he'll be back for next Wednesday. He's done doing his, his fancy smancy hosting duties for other TK shows. But appreciate it, man. Make sure you check out Reed's stuff at Reed T. Fowler. DK Nation stuff. He's already got the Trends article up, got the PGA stuff every week. You can check me out at the Fantasy Grind on Twitter. Again, got the tournament target up for this week's conference championships. 3.5 million maker, folks. Make sure you get into that. It'll probably fill early too. Have a great week for everybody of the Northern Trust. Obviously, we got the Saturday finish, and make sure you check out the lines on DraftKings Sportsbook after this round is over. So see you guys next week. Peace out.
Good luck.